This is it, folks. The final team builder that you will see for SPL D-League. Doesn't matter what happens, this is the last one that I can possibly upload. And for this final one, I'm treating things a little bit differently. Gone are the fancy graphics, the animated sprites, and me taking images and cropping them down to show what they look like in game. And I'm taking it back to basics, to the roots that I talked about way back when I was saying how I would do these team builders. And sometimes it's the simple things that you need. And therefore, all that's here is a showdown tab, my face, and a matchup above me. And let's just say, this one's going to be a bit longer. It's finals. It's not surprising. How's it going, guys? And welcome back to the channel. Today, it is my team builder for finals of SPL D-League, where your slow working means we're taking on DyeItTight, the coach of the Minnesota Lycan Wolves. To say that I'm surprised that Dye is here would be me lying out of my arse. Dye has been incredibly dominant ever since he took those 2 losses in a row, one of which was to myself, but we'll get more into that in a second. Since then, he has dominated everybody. He is the league MVP, he's won all of his playoff games with absolute ease, and he was a comfortable second seed behind myself. But if we do go back to that game, it's safe to say that I did kind of cheese him with a well-executed set. And it's safe to say that despite some changes in the matchup since, I still dislike it, and it still forces me to go a very particular direction. If you guys have been enjoying the team builders that I've been doing all season long, please do let me know by leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, and commenting. As well as letting me know what you think of this new format, because I might keep this going for future Wi-Fi leagues, if it's a format that people prefer. Not only is it slightly easy editing effort, but I think it also just looks a bit cleaner and doesn't have me messing around with things as much as I appreciate graphics, and as much as I appreciate Yehuda's hard work, sometimes it's the simple things that can be the most effective. Here I have been rambling for about 2.5 minutes on things that people don't really care about when it comes to a finals team builder. So let's get cracking into what actually matters. And that is the matchup that you can see right above me. DyeItTight's team consists of a Greninja, Landorus Therian, Iron Hands, Ogerpon Hearthflame, Pheasantipity that has access to Terra, Blastoise, Basculegion with access to Terra, Mesprit, Archaladon, and Hisuian Avalugg. Nothing has changed on Dye's end since we played back in week 3. My team, there's been 2 changes since that game. Obviously I picked up Cyclizar, and I have Hisuian Quillfish that I have not brought all season. This matchup is still not fun whatsoever. Yes, I am slightly better off into the 2 things that were the scariest last time out, being the Ogerpon Hearthflame and the Basculegion, because Cyclizar not only gives me a normal that feels more bringable in the matchup, it also outspeeds Ogerpon as well as can aggressively switch into IV Cudgels, which means that stuff like Scarf Overquill that I had to resort to last time does not feel like as much of a necessity. Last time out, Dye decided to bring a Focus Sash Gren, an Assault Vested Lando, a Rocky Helmet mostly Fizz Def Iron Hands, SD 3 attacks Ogerpon with Double Grass in the form of Trailblaze and Hornleech. He brought Choice Scarf Basculegion Female, Terra Ghost, and all it did all game was Quick Shadow Ball, an Assault Vested Archaladon that was mostly designed for Espathra, but didn't really do that and ended up just dying 2 specs Rotom. And I think there's going to be a fair bit of change. Obviously, I'm skipping over the elephant of the room in the first 4.5 minutes of this video, but last time he lost to my Landorus set, which was Bulk Up Adrenaline Orb. And it introduces a really interesting dynamic into this rematch, in terms of what is his measurement of prepping for that exact set, and what does he do for the other iterations of Lando? Dye is in a much better position in terms of not needing to change a whole lot about his team. But at the same time, I think he's going to. He saw that my Spathra last time, being Terra Fighting and Lumina Crash, was quite potent. So I'm not 100% sure on is the Assault Vest or Chaladon going to be his bring? Especially now that I don't have Braviary, meaning he doesn't need the flying resist as badly. The other thing that I think is an interesting dynamic is his Meow check of choice. Pheasantipity I do think will be the bring this time around, solely because Iron Hands can be a little bit exploited. And that's exactly what I did. I exploited it with my landers. Yes, Pheasantipity also falls in the same boat, but Masquerade does not have coverage that can deal with Pheasantipity in the way that I could run Player Off this time to deal with an Iron Hands, for example. As well as Fez is just kind of better into stuff like Special Cyclozar. So I do think he's going to change his approach there. The other interesting question is about the Landers itself. So, in terms of dealing with Espathra, I think he's going to bring the Mesprit this time around. I talked about it a lot in the Week 3 team builder, that I was expecting something like a Covert Cloak Mesprit. And I still think that's the case. I think some form of Spadef Covert Cloak Mesprit to be able to deal with Lumina Crashes, as well as being able to slow Encore any of the Calm Mindsets, or get up Trick Room for any of the Calm Mindsets. Or I guess Trick Lagging Tail is another option, but I don't see that as likely as the others. He also could technically use it as his Lando response, but there's other adjustments that I'm expecting him to make. In terms of the 6 that I'm expecting here, I might as well go into it right now. I think that the Grand will show up, and I think he's going to ditch the lead idea with Spikes, because obviously I have a Cyclozar now. I think he's going to ditch the idea of just kind of the lead. I think he was bringing counter last time, as like, it was funny because I ran into 2 of those similar sorts of counter leads in the first 3 weeks. But I think that's going to go, and I think he's going to go for Scarf Protean this time. The combination of his dual stabs as well as Ice Beam, it could go extrasensory either in the Dark Pulse slot, because Dark Pulse is technically not needed, because the Spathra is likely to Terra. As combine that with Switcheroo to be able to cripple probably my best check, which is Almamola, which, you know, I did make some comments last time that he's probably aware of, in terms of me not thinking my waters are great. I do think I've changed my opinion on that as the weeks have gone on. I think the waters are better the more that I look at the matchup, but, you know, we'll get to that when I start breaking down this team here. I do think it's going to be Scarf Protean Gran, and I think it is going to pack Switcheroo just as a crippling method for some of the more annoying pits of my team, predominantly the Alamola, or potentially a Spathra as well, because Protect is so difficult for me to break. I do think the Ogerpon Heartflame is going to show up again. I think it's going to respect something like Foul Play Meow a hell of a lot more. So I think he's going to go like an SD set. But I think this time he is going to bring Play Rough. And I think this time he's going to bring Spiky Shield instead of Trailblaze. I think he's just going to rely on the combination of Ivy Cudgel plus Play Rough being really potent, and bank on something like an Alamola benching. And even if Alamola comes, you can still just kind of SD to Oblivion and do a ton, and you can still scout the Meowscarada with something like Spiky Shield. So that's kind of what I'm expecting there. I think Fizdef Fez is a lock, and it kind of has 4 moveslot syndrome. With this, I think Moonblast, I think Taunt. It's one of U-Turn or Toxic. I think it's going to be Toxic, just to play it safe and not having to rely on Toxic Chain. But he could go the latter, just to be able to get out on stuff like Jirachi. And Roost, obviously. Maybe there is a world where he brings like Calm Mind, or maybe he takes on Icy Wind because he's scared of Lando. But overall, I just think Fez is better than Iron Hands here. Although, I think there is a world that both can show up. Iron Hands, I think, is actually a lot better, not as Masquerade check, but as an SD breaker. As something like SD Shaka with Dual Stab plus Ice Punch absolutely rocks my team. So I have to be really, really careful about that. Therefore, I think he could actually bring the 2 of them. And then, like I said, I think the Mesprit's going to show up. And lastly, the elephant, or I guess giant fish in the room, is Basculegion. I don't think he's going to go Scarf again. I don't think Scarf is as good now because of the fact that Victor Cycles are. So he could go similar to his Week 1 team, where he decided to bring Scale Shot Basculegion. Basculegion male. I think male is actually better than female now, just with the way that the matchup's kind of evolved. I think he will go male this time. Female could come, and if female comes, I think the only set that will come is Agility Terra Fairy, because that's still very, very good into me. But I'm kind of expecting Mail more. There is a chance it goes a similar set, the Agility set, but I also think Assault Vest is something that is quite likely. I'm gonna say Terra Fairy again, just because kind of Terra Fairy Terra Blast with adaptability boosted is very nice into my team. And I don't deal the best with Fairy types. Although he might just want to go on neutral Terra to be able to help him in, just like versus Landers. So maybe Water? But yeah, I'm not sure. Basque Legion is just the scariest thing though. That's what I'm expecting, and I've been going for 10.5 minutes, and let's get into what I'm bringing. So, you probably saw the thumbnail, and that means one thing. It means that I'm bringing him on off the bench for the first time since I picked it up. And this was actually the first thing I thought of, because Dye's team is very susceptible to Hazard's deck. He has spoken openly about it all season. He's not brought Rapid Spin on Blastoise a ton, and he doesn't really bring Blastoise all that often. And while I think it could maybe come versus me, it's still very difficult to do so. Therefore, first mod in is Hisuian Quillfish. I can't spell. Where are you, buddy? There we go. We're bringing Lil Puffer. I still can't spell. This is the joys of doing it live. Obviously a Violet, and with Intimidate. Now, this thing is important because of Spikes. I really want to be able to get as many hazards up as possible, and with the fact that this thing is slightly fatter than Overquill, I can actually use this a lot more as a pivot switch in. Therefore, I like Pain Split, because I can get Pain Splits on stuff like Iron Hands. I could potentially get a Pain Split on Heart Flame, maybe Fez and Dippity, although I do think it's kind of likely that the Fez does go Taunt. But like I said, the Fez does kind of have 4 Moonslot Syndrome, so I kind of want to scout that out as well as I can. We have Barb Barrage, because that is, I just need a Poison Stab here to be able to deal with Overgrown Heart Flame. And getting the poisons across his team, especially if the Landorus shows up, is quite important, and then obviously having to stack damage on top of that. And last but not least, we have Haze. Now, this was the slot that I was debating a lot, and I decided on Haze because of the aforementioned Sword Sense Iron Hands. The other thing that kind of played into it was stamina boosts of our Chaladon, because it just becomes very annoying to kill. So having Haze I thought was quite beneficial. This was crunch / lash out for a little bit. Aside from that, I didn't really do too much experimentation with the set. But overall, this was something I was quite happy with. I knew spikes were going to be important, and if I can keep Quillfish around as long as possible, it means the more hazards I can get and the more pressure that I can put Dye under. And that is crucial in this game. In terms of an EV spread here, we decided to go with this. We have max HP, obviously. We have 216 in Spadef, because this is my attempt of switching to Basque Legion female. I do take these hits relatively well. I think this was designed so that Surf from a non-Terra, because I don't think you go Terra Water as well as female, personally. I just don't think it does well enough into the waters, that both of whom could very much run AV. So we have 216 here. We then have an Impish Nature and 24 in Fizdef. And the reason for that is this allows me to take 2 IV Cudgels after rocks from an Ogerpon Heartflame. And this is super important, because it means I can get a spike on Ogerpon Heartflame. Because if it stays in Click Taunt, it's a really risky play for a mon that does so much work versus me offensively. So I don't think it's going to happen. We have a little bit of an attack here, just because I actually didn't want to run any speed investment, because it gets me more information on the Basket Legion. This could have gone to speed, but I actually like the extra little bit of attack, just in case I need to chip down an Iron Hands, or potentially a Greninja, because obviously this is probably my best response to Greninja as well. Hisuian Quillfish is super important for its debut, and if I can get the hazards up, like I said, I should be in the driver's seat. Joining it this week, we have our MVP of last time. We have Landorus. And Landorus was a nightmare to figure out. There was a point where I considered benching it, there was a point where I was actually going to bring the exact same, a very similar ilk in terms of sub bulk up. I was going to scrap Adrenaline Orb. And I was actually going to go a lot fatter and also Salic. The reason for this was because I felt as though Landorus coming, it was going to have some sort of tech. And obviously the last time I talked about Crunch, I didn't really talk about Body Slam. I did live it in terms of +1 behind a sub with the old investment I had, but I do think if Dye wants to kind of go with that sort of Landorus again, he's going to run a lot more attack investment because he's going to be cautious of what I did to him last time. You know, it's obvious. And so what I decided to do was I decided to keep the Salic from that. It was just a really good idea, and having the speed felt really beneficial. Yes, he does have access to both Aqua Jet from his Basque Legion, as well as Water Shuriken from his Gren. But because the fact that I think the Gren's not going to have the room for Shuriken because of Scarf, and I think Legion is just going to be a difficult time in general, I thought that just having speed boosting Lando was really nice. We are rocking Sheer Force, obviously. Sound Force would be a little bit insane in finals. And the set that I ended up on in the end was a subset, but it's with Nasty Plot, with Earth Power and Slugger. And the reason for that is I decided to go very ballsy and not really prep for the exact same lineup. There was a simple explanation for this, and it was because I do think Lando's going to get benched. This might be too hard a call out, and if the Lando does show up, I'm going to be quite a miserable human being on Team Preview, because this thing's not going to work, and we'll get into later why Landorus is just kind of a risk that I took, which I know is a giant risk for a Mon that's like a round 2 stable, but we'll get into it when we get into it. There was a lot of things, a lot of kind of moving parts in this matchup, so I need to take some risks somewhere, and this was one that I was happy with compared to other potential risks. So the intention behind this set is I wanted special because I was worried that physical was going to lead to him making some more very specific responses. And what I'm talking of there specifically is Iron Hands. Iron Hands is far more likely to stay in, as well as something like a Fizz Def Pheasantipity, especially if it is rocking Icy Wind, which is highly possible. Therefore, I decided special was just better because I needed the damage output. And it also kind of played into some Archaladon sets as well, potentially. Sub Nasty Plot did just feel quite potent because if I was able to get a Nasty Plot off on something like a Mesprit, although if Mesprit is his switch in the first time, I'm actually clicking Sledge Wave, because what I want to do is I want to scout for, is it Ice Beam or is it Psychic Noise? The way that I have this Lando is that, let me just stick in the EVs before I continue here. We have 172 in speed. We're going max special attack modest. And we have 84 in HP. So this HP investment means that with Psychic Noise, 2 of them, after I click sub, gets me into Salic Bearing range. Therefore, if I Sludge Wave the first time on a Psychic Noise, I'm able to Nasty Plot up the second time, and in most cases, I should be able to just kill. This is with the assumption that I have Rocks up, but we'll get into why I feel pretty confident in that later. This set I do think has the potential to put in a lot of work if the Landorus doesn't show up, but if the Landorus shows up, then I think my best bet is just kind of trading down with it and just taking my like 50 to like 75% chip, depending on what sort of Landorus it is. I could solo it if it's not AV, and he just kind of relies on the aspect of breaking the sub, which could work quite well, but I kind of need to figure that out once we get into the game itself. Landorus did not let me down last time, and I hope it doesn't let me down here. Although, if it does, and only trades for about, I don't know, 50% of Lando, I might regret bringing this thing. But it is what it is. That's finals. We gotta take some risks sometimes. We then get to the other Mon that I picked up as part of the regular season. Oh, also, before I forget, why am I forgetting my nicknames? Why so serious? Here we go. Yeah, no, it's weird to kind of be nicknaming them, but you know, it's a lot more faithful to those Miguel videos. Good God, we're 20 minutes in already. Time flies when you're having fun. We then get to Cyclozar, and Cyclozar was always going to come here. I talked about it so much there in the matchup breakdown that it was super obvious that this thing had to come because of its speed tier and because of its ability to deal with Legion. We obviously have regen. I'm going to leave the item blank for now because the item's kind of fun. We have a set of Double Edge, we have Endeavor, which I'll get into the logic there in a second, we have Taunt, and we have Knockoff. So, Double Edge is obviously just my strongest move across the board. Endeavor is there because I think this thing is going to get weakened quite quickly, especially if I'm just kind of clicking Double Edge and stuff and taking recoil, or there's some hits that just don't quite do enough to kill me. And being able to Endeavor down one of Pheasantipity, Iron Hands, or a Chaladon is super duper valuable here. Knockoff's obviously there for the Basket Legion predominantly, but also getting rid of some items. Arch Assault Vest comes into mind, Lando Assault Vest could be good too. Pheasantipity's Boots or Rocky Helmet are also good to get rid of. And Taunt is there lastly because I was a little bit worried about the aforementioned Agility Basket Legion, and it also kind of covered my bases against a Shell Smash Blastoise, which, let's be real, could be quite scary if he does try to go the route of something along the lines of just kind of Endure Salic. Because if you can do that to get around Scarf Masquerada, then I'm in trouble. So I can't really afford to risk that whatsoever, and therefore, Taunt on Cyclozar. It was Quick Attack initially, just to be able to kind of pick off stuff like a Fast Basket Legion that's teared out of its Ghost typing, or like a weakened Gren was another one. But in the end, I just couldn't see myself keeping it. The item I went back and forth on a lot. I initially had his Roselli Berry to help me to deal with Player Hook on Heartflame, as well as the Terra Blasts that I mentioned from the Basket Legion forms, both male and female. Mirror Herb was another one I had because it was a good punish for a Swords Dance Overpun, and that set actually had Dragon Claw to be able to deal with our Chaladon better. I had that over Endeavor. But what I went with in the end is still probably the biggest surprise of the bunch. I went with Normal Gem. And the reason for this is there is no way for a Cyclozar to kill an Ogerpon from 75%. Also a Stealth Rock assumption. Or I guess technically 3 layers of spikes, but I'm far more likely to get rocks than 3 layers of spikes, let's be real here. And the only ways that I could kill it were, one, being Life Orb, which I didn't fancy with the fact that I was running Endeavor, and 2, with a Choice Band, which felt even worse, because giving Basket Legion any sort of free reign was a really bad time. And so, that's where Normal Gem came in. Because this has the power that a Life Orb does, it gives me that initial oomph that could catch Dye by surprise, solely because of the fact that he might design an Ogerpon to where it can just kind of deal with Cyclozar by clicking Ivy Cudgel and then Play Rough right afterwards. Yes, the Roselli Berry would cover it. He might also go Low Kick, hypothetically, to get around Roselli Berry, if that's what he's kind of seeing in his own mock process. This thing's actually been putting in quite a lot of work in mocks. Isn't quite picking off the Ogerpon, but that first Double Edge is actually really strong, to the point where if I'm able to get like rocks and spikes, I can just kill Pheasantipity outright with Normal Gem boosted Double Edge into another Double Edge. And that was really potent. Cyclozar has a very important role here, and I just need to make sure that I can get it into the positions to do what it needs to do. It's a lot worse into the structures where you see both Pheasantipity and Iron Hands, because he kind of has the luxury of both. But like I said, in those games, it can even still Endeavor down one of the threats and just make things feel that little bit better. Also, it's Charles. Of course it's Charles. And of course it's male. Although I actually forgot to set it as male in Genic, but it came out male anyways, so W. In terms of the EV spread for our good friend Charles here, we are rocking 168 in speed with a Jolly Nature, because this is the obvious speed tier to get over Ogerpon. Running max attack because I have to, and I still can't type, which is the issue when you do these sorts of team builders. You kind of need to be able to type. And then we have an interesting breakdown here of 72 HP, no, 76 HP. We have 8 Spadef, and we have 4 Fizdef. And the reason for this is that this HP and Spadef breakdown means that I can live a Scarf Basket Legion female's Ice Beam. And that from full. And that's important, because if I don't live that, it just means Scarf Basket Legion is going to absolutely tear me a new one. And it doesn't even need to tear it, because it if it can Ice Beam kill the Cyclozar, it can just kind of spam Surf versus the rest of my team, or Shadow Ball if Quillfish gets worn down enough, which can be quite likely depending on how he plays the game. So I definitely needed that, and just kind of be able to knock off that Scarf at that point. Even if he does Terra, it also means that I can kind of keep it just for Endeavor later. But knockoff is still just great as is, so that was the reasoning behind that. This can live like, you know, some very offensive, like +1 Gren. Can live like Surfs. It doesn't get 2-shot by Surf. It does die to Ice Beam, and like I think if he does go the Battle Bond set, there's no way you don't bring Ice Beam. I think Ice Beam into my team is just good because, you know, there's a Ladderus and a Cyclozar. So, but you know, these things never quite go as you think, but that's kind of where I'm thinking. Overall, like I said, I think Cyclozar is going to be critical here, just be able to get off good damage across the board, and hopefully endeavor something down in the late game that opens up for the next 2 months that we're going to talk about. The next thing I'm going to talk about, I think, is relatively obvious, and that is Espathra, the emu. It autofills now. Great! And Emu was difficult. I actually started out benching Emu, but we'll get into that later, as I realized that I was an idiot. But in terms of Terra types, we're going Terra Fairy. We're finally bringing Terra Fairy on this thing this season. And we're rocking the Keyberry, which I think kind of gives away the sort of set that I'm going with. I needed the defense boost for the Calm Mind, Stored Power, Dazzling Gleam, and Roost. Standard.emu. It's still very, very good into his team, especially with the Hazard's pressure, because if I'm able to wear down Archaladon, it puts me in a really nice position. The Keyberry helps me kind of get through mons such as the Overcon Heartflame. It can help me get through Ladderus. It can help me deal with a priority. The main one that comes to mind being Basket Ninja Aqua Jet. And it can help me versus certain types of Archaladon. I do think he will bring Ironhead this game, and I think he probably will run a fair bit of attack investment to where I can't quite live it, because I need the offensive power, which we'll kind of get into in a second. But yeah, overall I think the Keyberry was just quite important with this set. Also gives me the extra boost to stored power quite quickly, which is good. And this set in general, obviously his Dark type is Greninja, which just quickly dies to Dazzling Gleam, which is wonderful. And I think there's a lot of mons that can Calm Mind up on. Obviously, if he goes into Mesprit, I am expecting Slow Encore, so the idea there would just kind of be Calm Mind and then just kind of Dazzling Gleam spam, because his Fairy Resist aren't exactly amazing if I can get Hazards up. Because he's not really going to want to go into Ogerpon, take Rocks and potentially a Spike, and then just have to keep taking +1 Dazzling Gleams. Especially if he doesn't actually kill because of my Keyberry. Keyberry is also great for Iron Hands, which is kind of the main one. I need to be really careful about when I Terra this thing, though. That is the thing I need to be super mindful of. Because of, like I said, with Iron Head, Archaladon being really likely, another thing that's likely on an Assault Vest Archaladon is Dragon Tail, which I'm pretty sure he had the last time. So I need to time it to the point where I'm not taking the extra damage from Iron Head, but I'm also not getting Dragon Tailed out. And that problem could also mean that Last Mon Emu could be really good if I can get into a position where I actually don't need to Terra, and therefore can 1v1 the Archaladon. Overall, I'm putting a lot of my eggs in the Emu basket, but Terra Espathra is him, and, you know, despite a fairly hit and miss season at times from this thing, I do think that is my best route towards victory this time around. In terms of an EV spread for this Emu, we have gone with 140 in speed. The idea of the speed tier is the same as Lanners. It gets me over max speed Basket Legion as well as a max speed Blastoise. Our bulk then is 100 in HP, 40 in defense, and lastly 92 in speed F. I have to break this all down in one go though. It's pretty important. So the reason for the Fizz Def is that after Rocks, I can take an Ivy Cudgel from Max Attack Ogerpon. I don't think he's bringing Power Whip, which is technically stronger. I think in terms of a Grass move versus my team, you always go Horn Leech. But I did want to cover for Ivy Cudgel, which is the strongest move. And then, of course, after the Keyberry boost, I can either just kill it, or I potentially just kind of click Roost against it. It's a tricky one, but I do want to be able to live that hit. It also means that potentially versus the Ogre Pump, what I can do is I can actually click Roost immediately, which would get me to like 60, and that would be good. And then the Spadef helps me with Greninja specifically. It allows for me to be able to kind of take 2 Hydro Pumps after I get a Calm Mind off, provided that it's not something like my full respects. This felt super good, and we've stuck the rest into special attack and a modest nature, because like I said, I needed the attacking power. I needed that extra damage because of obviously the existence of our Chaladon, as well as how fat Basculegion can be, especially if it is going Assault Vested. Another thing to note with this set is that there is quite a few of them that I can live Liquidation and Aqua Jet from like a max attack Adamant Basculegion that's not like banded. Even if it is Terra Water, I think I do live that from full, or it's like a roll that's very much in my favor. So that would be very good here. Like I said, Espathra is 100% the win con, and I needed to put in absolute overtime this week. And yes, it's only the second time I'm bringing Store Power Espathra, and the last time I brought it I lost, so let's hope that omen does not continue. Obviously, we are 4 months in, and we haven't seen, my round 1 pick yet. So, of course I'm bringing Meowscarada. And of course it's Puss in Boots. And of course, it's not actually rocking heavy-duty boots. It hasn't all season, which is quite funny when you think about it. We've yet another Choice Scarf Meowscarada. This time with Flower Trick, Knockoff, U-Turn, and Play Rough. And then I might as well just fill in the EVs here because it's pretty boring, and you don't need to be bored by that. So, with Meowscarada here, it's very similar to the last time. Obviously, I need it because of the threat of Battle Bug Ren, or, more likely in my opinion, Scarf Protean Ren. So I need to be able to outspeed that. I need to be able to outspeed +2 Basculegion, a Shell Smashed Blastoise were kind of the crucial ones, or just any other Scarfree ones to attempt to get cheeky with. I needed the speed control here, and I went with Knockoff this time, because of the fact that I think Pheasantipede is far more likely to come, and because of the fact that I'm hazard stacking. I need to be able to get rid of as many heavy-duty boots as possible. You then have Play Rough, because if the Iron Hands does come, I want to be able to hit that as hard as possible. And like I said earlier with Dazzling Gleam Emu, his fire resists aren't exactly amazing. So if there is a position where the Chaladon doesn't show up, Play Rough could be quite a good click in the endgames, and that would be really nice. Flower Trick is obviously there just for strong grass moves, for covering the ground as well as the Legion, and U-Turn just to get me on out of there. This thing mostly is just going to act as a cleaner and a revenge killer, and with the hazards pressure, it should be able to put in a nice bit of work. Maybe it can clean up in the endgame depending on how it goes, or can just kind of open the door for Emu to do its thing. Don't need to spend a huge amount of time on Meowscarada because it's the mon that has the most overlap compared to what I brought the first time, so we're just going to swiftly move on. Lastly, we have Jirachi, as you probably worked out from me mentioning Stealth Rock so much earlier in the video. We have a Rocky Helmet on Jirachi this week, aka our, not 2,000 years, 1,000 years. And we have a set of Stealth Rock, Thunder Wave, Psychic Noise, and Aura Sphere. So we've gone a little bit tankier than the last time. So with this Jirachi, it was kind of the last thing that got added to this team, because I realized, because I changed my Landorus, and Rocks, I still stand by being super important here because of the Urban Heart Flip. Yes, I have a Cycles right now, but it's still the biggest threat. And even in general, I just need the chip on monsters like a Rocky Helmet Pheasantipede, I need the chip on Gren, and I need that chip on Legion, badly. So I feel Rocks are still super important, and this is going to be my lead in like 99% of instances. Again. It's funny how Jirachi's role is kind of molded from like had a few weeks where I got to run like Calm Mind, Offensive Weakness Policy, and now it's just back to being a rocker again. And still my lead, which obviously it was intended to be my lead in the Week 3 game, but that kind of shaved over time. So it's funny how things come back full circle sometimes. In terms of an EV spread, it's kind of specific. We have a spread of 240 in HP, 188 in Spadef, and a Calm Nature, of course, and 80 in Speed. Let me just double check that's correct. That is in fact correct. Good job, TJ. So the speed gets me over a modest Basket Legion, which is good. It means that I can technically Thunder Wave it, which could help versus specific ones, agility being the main one that comes to mind, or just in general because full powers are great. You know, it's Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave is fantastic. I talked about it enough about the Goldango in the document that probably only about 10 people read, if even. So, yeah. And this SPDEF and HP combination means that any non-boosting item Gren, I actually just live 2 Dark Pulses. So in the event that he does kind of go lead Gren again, it's really nice because what I can do is I can Stealth Rock on the first one, or I can T-Wave on the first one, as Dark Pulse doesn't 2-shot me. I can then get the Aura Spear off, as he either goes for it again or switches out. And even if he's taunt and like gets me on the first turn, I still just Aura Sphere 2-shot him and he can't 2-shot me. So that would be absolutely perfect. The Rocky Helmet is here because I wanted to kind of get the extra chip on monsters like Pheasantipity, as well as Iron Hands. Obviously my Quillfish has a lot of rolls here, so I can kind of use this as a secondary, like more flexible response to Iron Hands, because of the fact that I can take hits, Rocky Helmet it down, and then Psychic Noise to stop it from just clicking Drain Punch on me, which felt quite good here. And yeah, overall, this Jirachi, it kind of, you know, is fairly flexible in what I can do. Also is quite good at punishing Pheasantipity U-turns, which is good. Especially if it's kind of using that as his platform to get him up the Basket Legion, which I don't need to go into anymore just how scary that thing is. It's the kill leader in the league for a reason. And that is the team that I am bringing for finals of SPL D-League. I have rambled for 36 minutes and I'm still not done. I hope you guys are enjoying the longer form. Like obviously prior to SPL, I did a lot of long form content like this. So this is kind of giving you more of an insight into the way I'll kind of be doing things outside of leagues. You know, I am the type of person that does enjoy these sorts of discussions, and I hope you guys are too. Anyways, let's kind of get into, I have the first build that I put together, and you'll see there's a few similarities here. There is a different Landorus. This was actually my starting Landorus when I thought that Landorus would come, but would actually just kind of be more SPDEF rather than Assault Vested. Which I then kind of didn't think was going to be the case. I think if it does come, I'm not sure it'll be Assault Vested, but it'll definitely be something weird. I could see something even along the lines of like Rain Dance Weather Ball with like Swiss Wind Basket Legion to just absolutely tear my face in. That would be quite scary. I hope it's not that. The way the team's gone. The issue is Dye's team just has so many options versus me, so I took a lot of risk. But we do have Stealth Rock and Prison here because the idea was kind of to be able to keep hazards off. And we then paired that with a Choice Scarf Terra Ghost Rotom. Obviously his Ghost Resist is still a Greninja, which would be wonderful for Rotom. But fun fact, I brought this into one mock and a modest Choice Scarf Rotom, whilst Terrid, did 29% to an Iron Hands. And yeah, I just couldn't do it anymore. I was like, that's ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. And yeah, Rotom went pretty quickly after that. We also had a Life Orb Quaquaval with a set of Aqua Step, Low Kick, Knockoff, and Swords Dance, which could be quite potent because Knockoff, obviously Life Orb Aqua Step could 2-shot a Pheasantipity after rocks, and Low Kick obviously being 120 base power on the Iron Hands without dropping my defenses, making me more susceptible to priority because the fact it's water typed, was looking quite good. The issue was that obviously when I changed the Landorus out of being the Stealth Rocker, I felt I needed the Stealth Rocker, and this team in general just felt a little bit weak to Pheasantipity was the main thing. Also, you'll see the Mirror Herb here on Cyclozar, which I did kind of talk about earlier. This set did have Quick Attack to be able to pick off a Gran, because at +2 I think it did like 60% of Gran, which was quite nice. So, yeah. Oh, this was before Dragon Claw. I then ditched Endeavor on this set for Dragon Claw. So that was kind of that was the first build I had. Didn't really go to plan in mocks, so I scrapped it after kind of getting bullied a few times by Addison. Thanks, Addison. I appreciate you beating me down these last few weeks. And I'm just going to finish this with some alternative ideas. And I did mention, like I said back in the week 3, about my water types not being amazing, but I did feel a lot more appreciative of them, especially if they were rocking Assault Vest. Obviously, the way the Basket Legion put in so much work versus me the first time, and the fact that Gren exists, and Gren can be quite potent, meant that the Assault waters didn't feel incredibly copish. I had this Alamola at first and was thinking about bringing it over the Cyclizar, or over the Landorus was kind of the main one, but I just had a simple enough set of Aqua Step, Flip Turn, Knock Off, and Low Kick. Aqua Step just because, good strong water stab, could Flip Turn out on the stuff that I didn't like. Knock Off just to get rid of items, and then the Low Kick, like I said. I didn't want to really drop my defenses in this game, especially with, being Assault Vested. So, and then just the EVs were fairly simple. It just meant that I could live 2 Shadow Balls from Vascular Legion. As well as, I believe it took Expert Belt, Non-Protean Grand Extra Sensory. I don't think it's going to have room for Extra Sensory because I think Switcheroo is just such a better move for it, but, it's there just in case. Speed from Modest Legion, and then just as much attack as possible. In the end, then my thought process actually changed to bring Assault Vested Alamola. Because if I was going to bring this over to Landorus, I needed something that was relatively comfortable taking an Earthquake. Therefore, I had Assault Vested Alamola. Because this thing could take 2 hits from Terra Ghost Vascular Legion, which was really nice, as well as could somewhat deal with physical. Not really. Like, if you brought physical Terra Ghost, I'd be going Quillfish on it every single time. Because Wave Crash, if it's Choice Bandit, could actually just 2-shot this thing. But it's also taking like 40% recoil, which is quite good. But we just had a simple enough set here. Flip Turn plus Aqua Jet. Flip Turn to go out of there. Aqua Jet because it's a Who Classic, and just be able to pick off Landorus, or to pick off an Ogerpon Heartflame if I needed to. Play Rough in case he tried to get a bit fancy with the Gren. Especially if he went like SD on Gren, which would be quite annoying. And then Mirror Coat's obviously there just to chunk down Vascular Legion, which felt quite good. In the end, I decided not to bring this thing. I didn't even bring this thing to any mocks because I kind of had faith in the Landorus idea, and I decided to take that risk. But I just thought I'd show these because, they're just to kind of give the full insight into how I'm thinking. And that is it. That is the finals team builder. I will see you guys in about 24 hours for the game, which I'll be premiering on this channel at 3 p.m. GMT tomorrow, or 10 a.m. EST, because I'd say most of you are American. I don't look at my analytics, but I don't know. I hope you guys have enjoyed this SPL journey. There's one video left in it, the 20th and final. No, I actually think it's the 21st. I don't remember. Regardless of whatever happens, it's been a fantastic experience from start to finish, and I'm so glad I did it. But it will feel a hell of a lot nicer if I can end it with a championship, and I can end it with a spot in SPL in the bag going into Pokemon Champions. I hope you guys have all enjoyed this very lengthy team builder. I also wanted to make this a bit longer just as kind of an apology once again for not being able to do it last week, because I miss doing these team builders. These team builders are nice, and I hope you guys have been enjoying them. Although this could go down one of 2 ways. I hope you guys have all enjoyed, and I shall see you tomorrow for finals, baby. Peace.